Okay, good evening guys, and again welcome to my YouTube channel. This is your Prof. Zeus, and for this afternoon, we'll be discussing about the accounting principles applied in the preparation of financial statements. Okay? So, ano ba yung accounting principles na to? So, this should guide you in the preparation of the financial statements. No, ano yung mga yan? Number one, entity concept. No? So, if you would see in my illustration, you have there the business or the building which represents the business, and on the other side you have the businessman. Okay, so ano sinasabi ng entity concept na to? Sinasabi dito na yung business ay hindi the same as the owners, no? So business is different and distinct from the owners. That's why we have a separate capital account, no, dun sa ating financial statements para dun sa investment nung negosyante or nung business owner. Okay, so the entity concept actually dictates that only the transactions of the entity should be recorded in the books of accounts of the entity, no? Now, yung mga transaction that's personal to the owner, for example, si owner nagbayad ng kuryente ng bahay niya, should that be recorded in the books of accounts? No, because that is personal to the owner. Okay, yun ang sinasabi ni entity concept. When you invest your money in a business, okay, it's a separate entity already. So you cannot merge, you cannot mingle your personal funds with the funds of the business. Okay. Number two, going concern. So what does a going concern mean, and what is the importance of this going concern in accounting? When we speak of going concern in accounting, we view the business as continuing in terms of operations. No. Of course, we have this limitation from SEC that when you register, for example, a corporation, the maximum life is 50%, but 50 years, sorry. But that 50 years can be extended for another 50 years, no? So sa accounting, we look at the business as operating, okay, and will continue to operate in the future, no? Unless there's evidence to the contrary. What do I mean by evidence to the contrary? There are several indicators that could tell you that the business is no longer viable. Okay, for example, the business has been losing for the past how many years, no? So no additional investor would come in because who will entrust their money in a business that's already in a losing end. So wala nang ganon, di ba? Yun. Now, kapag naman hindi nalulugi, walang problema, so we view the business as really continuing, no, in terms of its operations. That's the going concern. Now, what's the impact? If say for example, we have determined that the business is no longer a going concern, such as the indicators na sinabi ko kanina, laging lugi, wala na nang papautang, so therefore it's on the verge of collapsing. Now that will, in a way, that will affect the presentation and the valuation of the assets in the statement of financial position. Okay? Next one is the time period or periodicity. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Kaya sabi natin, going concern, we view it as continuing. Oo, no? For you to be able to know the actual income or net loss from the business operations, ang gagawin mo syempre, tingnan mo mula umpisa hanggang dulo. Kung 50 years, hanggang 50 years yan, di ba? Then, you compute how much is the total revenue, magkano lahat ng expenses, the net will be your net income or net loss. However, of course, we have users of financial statements who actually need financial report or financial report every so often because they need to make decisions. No, kaya sa accounting ang ginawa natin, no, we divide the life of the business into shorter periods of time. Say for example, every year, no, by which the accounting or the accountant should produce the financial statements of the company. Of course, in reality, it's not only annually produced, no, yung financial report. Of course, management would need the financial report every month, so therefore accountants produce the financial report every month. Okay, this is of course to provide management with information that it needs for them to be able to make sound decision for the company. Okay. Next, accrual basis. Now, when you speak of accrual, it could be a revenue or an expense. In terms of revenue, we recognize as revenue all those services we have already rendered or goods that we have already delivered to customer, even though we haven't received any payment from them yet. So for example, December 26, pinaglinis ka, for example, no? Natapos ka maglinis December 31. Pero hindi ka binayaran. Ang tanong, should you recognize that as a revenue? Answer, yes, because of accrual basis, no? You recognize that as revenue, but the fact that you haven't received any cash yet from your customer, then you also recognize a receivable. Okay? Kasi na-render mo na yung service as of December 31. So therefore, you are entitled to recognize the revenue as of December 31 or on December 31. Okay? But since you haven't collected anything from the customer, then you have to also recognize a receivable. Now, in terms of expense naman, these are expenses that you have already incurred, meaning you receive the benefits. For example, dyan sa bahay nyo, di ba, ikaw ay naka-air conditioning unit. O ginagamit mo na aircon nyo from first day of the month hanggang last day of the month. But the question is, nung 31 ba nagbayad yung nanay mo? Di ba, hindi naman nagbayad ng kuryente. Bakit kaya hindi nagbayad ng kuryente? Tingin nyo. Tama. Dahil wala pa yung billing statement, di ba? Wala pa yung statement of account coming from Meralco. Kailan kaya marireceive yung billing statement na yun, mga iho-iha? Tama! No? The following month, marireceive yung billing statement. So, kailan nyo malalaman kung magkano yung kuryente? Following month pa, di ba? Pero ang tanong, kailan mo ba ginamit yung air conditioning unit? Di ba? Sa buwan na yon, kung for example, kung December yan, December mo ginamit. Kailan mo marireceive yung billing statement ng Meralco? Di ba January? Ang tanong, kailan mo siya ginamit? December. So you have to record the expense in December. Pero the fact na hindi ka pa nagbabayad, meron kang utang ngayon na dapat mong i-recognize sa libro para kay Meralco. Okay? So yan yung accrual basis. It could be an expense, it could be a revenue. Okay? Next one is cost principle. So transactions are recorded on the cost expended or based on the cost expended to acquire the asset. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Kung magkano yung ginastos mo para ma-acquire yung asset. So for example, nag-purchase ka ng kotse. Okay? Kotse is 700,000. Therefore, yung binayad mo para mabili yung kotse na 700,000, yun yung amount na gagamitin mo to record the asset. In that case, yung kotse. So gagawin mo, you recognize the asset, 700,000, and then of course, yung pinangbayad mo na cash, 700,000. So that's the cost principle, kung magkano mo siya nabili. Okay, next. Matching concept. Yung matching concept naman, simple-simple, matching. So ibig sabihin, yan kung kailan mo ni-record or kailan mo ni-recognize sa libro yung revenue mo, doon mo rin i-recognize sa same period na yon yung expenses na incur mo in producing the revenue. For example, okay, bumili ka ng isang pentel pen na nabenta mo. Okay? Bumili ka November. Nabenta mo siya December. So, kailan mo siya... Ano gawin?
Kailangan kulang po sa ng money. 1.7 po yung balance. Kulang siya ng 200 plus.
Kala ko 1.5 sabi niya.
1.7 daw po sa.
Okay, so November nagkaroon ng bumili ka ng tawag dito na wala tuloy ako. Bumili ka ng pentel pen noong November. Binenta mo siya noong December. So kailan mo na-recognize yung iyong tawag dito, yung revenue, 'di ba? Sa buwan ng December. O di dapat yung cost din na binili mo ng pentel pen na yun, na binenta mo, i-recognize mo na cost nung December. Huwag nung November. Kasi November hindi pa siya nabenta di ba? So hindi pa siya nabenta, hindi pa siya cost. Nasa tinatawag nating inventory pa siya, nasa balance sheet pa siya. Okay? Basta tandaan nyo, kung kailan mo na-recognize yung revenue, ganoon din doon buwan mo rin i-recognize yung expenses for you to achieve the matching principle. Okay? Okay, now we also have what we call the expense recognition principles. Now, tatlo ito. No? Meron tayong direct association, systematic and rational allocation, tsaka immediate recognition. So, yung pinakamataas will be the direct association. Bakit? Tulad ng nakalagay dyan, direct association. Yung expense mo has direct association or direct impact, no? Doon sa ni-recognize mong revenue. You can directly associate that. Tulad ng for example, nagbenta ka ng pentel pen. So yung cost ng pentel pen, nung binili mo siya, you recognize that as an expense because of the direct association method. O kaya, commission. Yung commission, di ba? Kapag ikaw ay nakapagbenta, entitled ka sa commission. Okay? So therefore, yung company, pag ni-recognize sa yung revenue coming from your sales, he should also recognize the commission that is entitled, that you are entitled to receive. Okay? Because there's a direct association with it, no, between the commission and the revenue. Now, if there is no direct association between the expense and the revenue, but you feel there's an expense, try number 2, systematic and rational allocation. Baka naman pwede mong i-allocate, no, yung expense over a certain period of time. For example, depreciation. There's no direct relationship between depreciation and the revenue that you earned or generated, right? However, you can still recognize depreciation as an expense for the period through what we call rational allocation. Ina-spread out na lang natin. Okay? Ina-allocate na lang natin. Okay? Over the period, which you will learn later, allocate over the period that has been benefited from the use of the asset. Now, kung yung expense ay hindi magko-qualify because there's no direct association and you cannot allocate it systematically or rationally, try immediate recognition. When do you use immediate recognition? You use immediate recognition in recognizing expenses if you feel that there's no more future benefit from an expense, no? That's why you are charging it immediately to expense. For instance, supplies. Okay? Yung supplies naman, pag ginagamit mo, di ba? So, pag ginamit mo, you recognize that immediately as an expense. Even though there's no direct association, you cannot allocate it, you recognize that as an expense through what we call immediate recognition. Okay? Yung mga maliliit na binibili natin, for example, puncher. Dati yung puncher, sobrang tigas, sobrang tibay, no? Yung tipong pag hinagi sa'yo, at tinamaan ka sa ulo, mawawalan ka ng ulirat talaga, no? So yun, for example, matagal yun. I mean, even some businesses ngayon can still have those punchers na talagang sobrang tibay. How much did it cost them? Probably less than 1,000. So if you depreciate mo yan over 20 years, magkano depreciation yan every month or every year? Sobrang liit, di ba? Mas malaki pa ngayon yung cost nung sweldo nung accountant mo na nagde-depreciate ng 1,000 pesos per month, di ba? Or ng 1,000 pesos over 20-year period kasi sobrang tibay nung puncher na yon. So what you can do is you expense it even though yan ay magagamit mo for a period more than 1 year, but because of this immediate recognition, wala ka nang, kumbaga, sobrang lita ng value for you to allocate it, di ba? So you can recognize that already as an expense. Okay? So yun yung mga principles that we use in the preparation of the financial statements. Next, let's go to the different branches of accounting. So dito, gusto ko makita nyo, ano ba yung mga opportunities that is available, no, to CPAs. Okay? Para kayo ay mahingganyong maging CPA. Now, ano ba yung mga branches of accounting, no? Yan. Una, we have financial accounting. So financial accounting is that branch of accounting that deals with the preparation of the general purpose financial statements, no? So sila yung gumagawa ng financial statements that we submit to BIR, to SEC, to creditors, to suppliers, no? Kaya nga yan ay ang nakalagay dyan ay general purpose financial statements, no? Whatever your reason is, wherever you're coming from, you will be using the same information, okay, na ginawa ni financial accountant, no? Kaya tawag sa kanya ay financial accounting. Now, next one is management accounting. So, ito naman ay nagdi-deal sa preparation ng mga reports that is intended for the internal users of financial information. Sila yung mga internal users na yan? Management, no? Management, department heads, no? Sila yung mga internal users of information. Bakit? Different ba yun from financial accounting? Yes, because the level of what? Details. The level of details and the orientation, the time period orientation is different, no? Pag management accounting, it's not only dealing with the past but also dealing with the future. Example, budgets, no? Yung budgeting is what? Part of management accounting. That is future oriented. But you don't present that to creditors, to suppliers. So what you present to them is historical financial statements, which is what the financial accountants do, no? Yung ating general purpose financial statements. Okay? Now, part of management accounting is what we call cost accounting. So cost accounting naman deals with the determination of the cost of the product that you produce. Kaya nga cost accounting siya, no? Di ba, department heads would like to know, for example, magkano ba yung cost of production ko? So that is what being given by our cost accountant, which is part of management accounting because they are producing information for the use of internal users of information. Okay? And then we also have what we call external audit. So external audit naman, it deals with what? It deals with the expression of an opinion on the fairness of the financial statements, no? So ito, to external auditors, okay, sila yung nag-certify naman sa mga ginawa ni financial accountant, no? Na itong financial statements is reliable and conforms with a financial reporting framework. Okay? Yun ang sinasabi ni auditors. But kinakailangan natin ng external auditing. Remember, there's a lot of users of financial information, no? And not all of them has access to the information within or documents within the organization. Kaya kinakailangan somebody has to tell them it's okay to believe or to rely on the financial statements because anyway I already checked the contents, no? I already checked the documents supporting those transactions. Yun ang ginagawa naman ni external auditing, no? It enhances the credibility of the financial statements prepared by management. Kasi remember, ang financial statements are representations of management. It's the management who's responsible for the preparation of financial statements. But syempre, it is a self-serving document. Pag gumawa ka ng financial statements, ikaw ang management. Di ba? Pinakita mo, for example, I have generated, say for example, 10 million worth of revenues. Kung pupunta ka sa isang banker para ipakita yon ng walang certification coming from external auditor, anong sasabihin nila? Totoo ba? Maniwala ako sa'yo. Diba? Kasi walang nagsasabi na hindi tagaloob na yan ay reliable information. That is the value that's added by the external auditors to the financial statements of the company. Okay? So yun yung branches of accounting natin. Now, when it comes to regulators naman of our profession, sino ba ang regulators ng profession natin? Of course, meron tayong tinatawag na PRC or Professional Regulations Commission. So sila yung overall. No? Lahat ng mga may examination, examination courses, like tayo sa CPA, no? Sa CPA Board Examinations, meron tayong teachers, engineers, architects, and all the stuff. Lahat sila ay under the PRC, except of course for law, for College of Law. IBP naman sila, no? Integrated Bar of the Philippines naman sila. They're not under PRC, I guess, no? So meron tayong PRC, at sa baba ng PRC ay merong Board of Accountancy. Okay? Board of Accountancy, sila yung nagsusupervise, nag-oversee ng accounting profession. Okay? They regulate the accounting profession. Paano? Sila yung in charge of what? Preparing and administering the CPA licensure examination. Sila yung gumagawa ng mga examination questions, and then sila din nag-announce kung sino yung mga pasado, kung sino yung mga pinalat, kung sino yung mga hindi. No? Yan. They're also the one in charge of issuing the certificate of those who passed the CPALE or the CPA licensure examination. Okay? Ano pa? As part of their power in terms of regulating the profession, they're also the ones who conduct investigation. No? In cases where violations of the accountancy law has been brought to their attention, sila yung in charge of investigating whether the accountant or the CPA involved is guilty as charged o hindi. Now, if found guilty, the board can actually revoke the license of the CPA. Pag sabi, okay, guilty as charged, so anong gagawin ni BOA? They can cancel or revoke your certificate of registration as a CPA. So pag ni-revoke yan, you cannot practice as a CPA. Now, can that be reinstated? Yes. It can be reinstated after, I think, 2 years, no? Na ikaw ay umasal lang tama, nababase sa profession natin, hindi discreditable to the profession, then your license can be reinstated. Okay? So, ang BOA ang nag-i-issue, nag-revoke at nag-reinstate ng licenses of CPAs. May nangyari ng ganyan, di ba, sa medical field naman, no? Na-revoke yung license niya, but after a period of time, I think it's 2 years then, no? Na-reinstate naman yung kanyang lisensya. Okay? Now, how do you become a CPA? You need to pass the CPA licensure examination. Now, for you to pass, you need to get 75%. Okay, average with no grade lower than 65%. Now, these are the different subjects, no? So you have practical accounting 1, or your financial accounting and reporting, and then practical accounting 2, or your advanced financial accounting and reporting. You have taxation, you have the regulatory framework, ito yung dating business law. Then you have auditing and management services. Dati kasi 7 yan, pero pinagsama-sama yung magkakatulad, yung related, no? Tapos in-split nila yung business law and tax, because before business law and tax is one subject, ngayon naging 2 subjects na siya. So you need to have 75% as an average with no grade lower than 65. Now, the examination for the CPALE is given 2 times a year, one every May and one every October. What if the candidate has obtained 75% but with grade lower than 65? He is then considered as conditional. No? Conditional siya, the certificate of registration and the PRC identification, hindi pa may issue sa kanya. Anong gagawin niya? He has the chance to retake the subjects kung saan siya nakakuha ng below 65%. Now, for example, dalawa na lang out of 6 ang below 65 niya, or isa na lang ang below 65 niya, kinuha niya, bumagsak siya. Okay, below 65, naging 50. Ano mangyayari? That is considered one full exam as failed, no? Failure na siya sa buong exam na yun. So, he has to retake all the subjects again. Imagine mo, sayang, di ba? Isa na lang, bumagsak ka pa. You have to take the full 6 subjects ulit. Kaya sayang na sayang talaga. Now what if nakadalawang take na siya, tapos bagsak pa rin? Anong mangyayari? Sa ngayon, no, he's not allowed to take another exam unless siya ay makapagpakita ng proof that he has attended a refresher course offered by an educational institution. So dapat may refresher course siya, that's equivalent to 24 units before he can be allowed to take another examination. Okay? So yan yung pagdating sa regulation ng ating accounting profession. Okay? Next. Yan. The financial statements. Ito yung financial statements natin. So sa financial statements natin, we have the following. Ito yung ating tinatawag na basic financial, general purpose financial statements. No? So that consists of statement of financial position. Dati ang tawag sa kanya ay balance sheet. You have the statement of income, the statement of changes in owner's equity, statement of cash flows, and then also the financial statement. So ito yung pinaprepare ni financial accountant, no? What we call the general purpose financial statements. Okay? Doon tayo sa statement of financial position. So statement of financial position is previously called the balance sheet. No? Bakit balance sheet? Binabalanse kasi natin no? Now, ano ba yung balance sheet? So it shows the financial health. Gaano ba ka-healthy yung isang kumpanya? Paano malalamang healthy siya? Kung marami siyang assets, konti ang utang niya, edi healthy siya. Pero kung marami siyang utang, ganda assets, hindi siya healthy, 'di ba? Kasi bakit? Nabubuhay siya dahil sa utang. Pag nabubuhay ka dahil sa utang, hindi ka healthy. Bakit? Kasi iniisip mo, saan ka kukuha ng pambayad? Pambayad ng interest, pambayad ng principal. Okay? At sa statement of financial position or balance sheet na to, we observe the accounting equation that states assets is equal to liabilities plus owner's equity. Anong ibig sabihin ng equation na to? Na ang assets ng isang kumpanya nagagaling sa dalawang partido. Ito yung mga creditors natin and of course the owners who provide the initial capitalization for the company. Okay? Yan. Now, ano ba ibig sabihin ng assets? So when we speak of assets, we are actually talking about resources. No? So resources, these are the assets or resources. These are things of value owned and controlled by the entity. So the company owns the asset and they have control over the asset. No? Now, these are used of course in the conduct of the business. So, ito yung mga assets na to, ang ginagamit ng isang kumpanya for them to be able to earn revenue and then produce the net income for the shareholders. Now, what are samples of these assets? You have cash, receivables, prepaid expenses, property and equipment. So, those are the basic and the common items that you find in your asset section. Okay? Now, assets is actually divided into two. It could either be current assets or non-current assets. Okay? Ano yung kaibahan ng current asset? Kung sabi current assets, ito yung mga items that the company will use or will be able to collect within the next 12 months. Okay? So if we're talking of January 1, lahat ng mga magagamit ng company from January 1 up to December 31, within that period are considered current assets or lahat ng mga kolekta nila. In the case of receivable, within that period are considered current assets. Pag ito naman ay magagamit, okay, in a period that's more than 1 year, then you call that as you classify them as non-current assets, no? Yan, tulad ng mga property and equipment. For example, transportation or vehicle. Hindi naman sa taon na ginagamit yan, di ba? Usually 5 years, 10 years, so you classify them as non-current. Okay? So yan yun. Now, what are the main or the common examples of current assets? So you have cash. Cash, pag sabi mong cash, hindi lang ito yung pera sa kumpanya, no? Yung cash on hand. Pwede rin ito ay nasa bangko, okay? Mga funds ng company, lahat yan ay tinatawag natin cash as long as the intention is to use it, no, for current operations. Walang restriction na pwedeng magsabing hindi pwedeng withdrawin yung cash. Okay, that is considered the current asset, no? Receivables o yung mga pautang natin sa ating mga customer, that is part of current assets. No? Bakit? Because we expect that we can collect them within the next 12 months. Okay? And then prepaid expenses ito yung mga expenses na binayaran mo muna pero hindi mo pa nakukonsumo. Now, if you're having a hard time thinking about prepaid expense, no? Isipin niyo na lang yung prepaid load nyo. 'Di ba? Prepaid load, kinakailangan mo munang bumili ng load, 'di ba? Bago mo siya magamit. So kaya ang tawag natin sa kanya prepaid, no? Yun din yung prepayment. So for example, bumili ka ng supplies, okay? Dapat bumili ka muna, no? Nagagastusan ka muna. Hindi naman ibig sabihin, gagamitin mo agad lahat ng supplies. Diba? So, hindi pa nagamit nandun sa asset. Pag nagamit mo na, you adjust it to expenses, which we will discuss when we go to adjusting entries. Okay? Now, what are some of the, cash, no? So, money, bills, and coins. So, yung mga change fund nila, meaning mga panukli. That's part of cash, no? It could be demand deposits in the form of savings and current accounts or yung mga funds nila like petty cash fund. Receivables naman, so these are amounts that's receivable from customers. No? It could be either trade or non-trade. Pag trade, ito yung customers natin, meaning the main line of business. Kung siya ay nagbebenta ng office supplies, lahat ng mga bumili sa kanyang walang bayad, yun ay trade receivables. Office supplies Pag non-trade naman, ito yung galing sa iba't ibang sources, no other than the main line of business. Kung siya ay seller of office supplies, merong empleyado bumili ng aircon niya. So receivable yun, pero it's a non-trade receivable ang tawag. Okay? Prepaid expenses, some expenses that you pay in advance, so like insurance, like rental, like supplies, no? Yan yon. Now, non-current assets naman, parang yung assets din, meron iba't ibang items na nandiyan, no? Basta ito ay magagamit mo for more than 1 year, you classify that as non-current asset, like property and equipment, okay, mga other non-current assets like intangible asset, for example. No? Ano ba yung tangible asset? Ito yung asset na hindi mo nakikita. Wala siyang physical qualities, no, or characteristic, pero alam mo na siya ay asset dahil nagagamit ng company. Tulad ng franchise, no? Yung mga McDonald's na yan, di ba, alam natin meron silang mga franchise, di ba? So yung franchise owners na yun, meron silang intangible asset that is called franchise, no? Yun, hindi siya nakikita, but you feel that there's a right, no? Meron siyang right para gamitin yun, no, dahil at siya ay nakakapag-produce ng revenue for the company. Okay, that's why it's called an asset. Okay? So yan, yung mga non-current assets, no, being used for the operations of the business for more than 1 year. So examples yan, machine, office equipment, transportation equipment, no? Yan, other non-current assets would be what? Yan, mga intangible assets, investments and shares of stock. Okay? Okay. Now let's, so yung liabilities natin in owner's equity naman. No? So liabilities, these are what? Obligations or financial obligations of the company to third parties or even to, it could be employees, no, could be management, mga ganon, okay? So just like assets, we classify them into two, current and non-current. Kasi sabi mong current, ito ay mga babayaran mo. Mga utang mo na babayaran mo within the next 12 months from balance sheet or from financial statement date. Pag non-current naman, ito naman yung babayaran mo outside the 12-month period. No? Yun yung mga non-current liabilities naman. So yung mga utang mo na pang matagalan. Okay, yan. Okay, so samples of current liabilities, you have accounts payable, accrued expenses, and all the stuff. Basta tandaan nyo, lahat ng babayaran within the next 12 months from balance sheet date, no, that is considered current liabilities. Non-current, pag naman to ay beyond 12 months bago mo bayaran. For example, you have a 3-year loan. So within the next 12 months, hindi mo siya babayaran, that is considered a non-current. Okay? Now, let's go to the last part, which is owner's equity. So when you speak of owner's equity, this is the residual interest of the owner in the net assets of the business. Meaning, ito yung tira-tira. Remember that they have assets, no? Pero meron siyang liabilities. No? So pag dineduct mo yung assets, yung liabilities from the assets, you have your net owner's equity. Ito yung residual, ito yung claim ni owner naman from the business. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Sinasatisfy muna kasi natin yung mga requirements, no, ng ating mga creditors. Okay? Dahil sa batas, sabi ng batas, kinakailangan unahin muna yung mga creditors bago ibalik sa owners yung kanyang mga investment. No? Kaya yan ang residual o yung tira-tira na lang. Okay? So ano ba yung content ng ating owner's equity? So you have your capital plus any additional investments, no, made by the owner during the year, o kaya kung meron mga withdrawals ng owner, no, ba i-deduct mo naman from the capital, no? And then of course, you add the net income, kung may net income siya during the year, or pag net loss naman, ibabawas naman natin. So yung sum ng mga yan, no, yun ang tinatawag nating owner's equity. Okay? Yan. Now, ano ba yung form ng balance sheet natin? So you have the account form. Sa account form, if you would notice, no, yung assets nasa left side, yung liabilities and equity nasa right side. Yan tinatawag nating account form. Okay? Pag report form naman, ganito. So una yung assets and then followed by liabilities and owner's equity. That is the report form. Okay? Now, exercise 1. So A if asset, L if liability, or E if owner's equity item. This exercise is what? The objective is for you to be familiarized with the items, okay? And where you show it in the statement of financial position. Okay? I'll give you like 1 minute or 30 seconds to answer. Okay, let's answer guys. So, accounts payable, ano yan? That is a liability. So, L. Cash on hand, that is an asset. So, A. Receivables, that's an asset. So, A. Alia capital, that's a capital o owner's equity account, right? Land, that's an asset. So, A. Savings account with BPI, that's an asset. So, A. Notes payable, o nakalagay payable. So, it's a liability, no? Unused office supplies, that's an asset. No, pwede mo pa siyang gamitin. Parang prepaid loan, di ba? So, letter A. Unpaid interest on bank loan. O ikaw may utang, so therefore utang mo rin yan. So, that's a liability. Computer equipment, okay, that's an asset. A. Building, that's also A. Unpaid salaries of workers. O utang mo sa empleyado mo. So, utang, that's a liability. So, therefore, liability. Alia withdrawals, that's part of owner's equity. Okay? Sige. So let's go to the next one. Exercise 2. Okay, familiarization of the accounting equation. So here, you are asked for the missing item, no? So alam naman natin yung ating accounting equation. Assets equal to liabilities plus owner's equity. Okay, so I'll give you time. 1 second. Kaya? Okay, let's try number 1. So, total assets is what? 100,000. Liabilities is 40. We're looking for owner's equity. So, how much is owner's equity? Great! Tama, no? Magkano siya? 60. Tama, kasi 40 plus 60 is equal to 100. Right? Okay, so we're looking for total assets. Liabilities is 70. Owner's equity is 80. So, magkano total assets natin? Tama na naman. 80 plus 70 is, ilan yon? Jimboy?
Sir?
70 plus 80, 150?
Yes.
150. Asset is 200. Owner's equity is 120. So, ano gagawin natin? Deduct natin yung owner's equity from the liabilities. So, magkano yun? 200 minus 80, you have, minus 120, you have 80. That is your liabilities. Ang galing! Case number 4, hanggang dulo, tignan nyo na lang yung sagot. Ito. Okay? So, those are the answers. Okay? Okay, so with that, I hope you are able to familiarize yourselves with the balance sheet and then, of course, the accounting equation. And I'll see you again for the discussion of the income statement. Okay? Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you were able to learn something from this presentation. Okay? Again, this is your Prof. Zeus, and thank you very much, and see you in our next session. Bye!